This podcast is being recorded on Gubby Gubby land. We pay our respects to the traditional custodians of this land, our country, and elders past and present. I'm Cait Muir, and this is my first ever official episode of Tell Me About It podcast, and I'm excited. Today's going to be a solo ep, and I just wanted to, kick off this whole thing with a bit of a feel-good, positive life advice, business advice episode. And the topic I chose today was how I increased my value and changed my life in 2025. I posted on my business Instagram a month ago, something like that, this post about how I did this, and it went off. And so I thought this is a really good place to start, especially as we're coming into the end of 2025. And I feel like time's just flying quicker than it ever has before. So dialing it back to 2024, I basically threw all the rules out the window, all the rules that I live and I teach and I stand by in my coaching business and in all of my experiences in business. And, I became extremely financially driven last year, but it was completely to the detriment of my own head and my own body and my own everything. And I basically threw my normal routine and my normal care and my normal everything out the window in pursuit of cash. And I ruined myself, in short. So if we take it back to 2024, I was literally forced to cancel 2 months of work. And if you're in business, and especially in a business like mine, where I'm the only kind of income generating employee in my business, that's fucking rough. It's hard yakka. It's hard work. I'm also the primary income source for my family. Obviously, my husband does work, but my business is the thing that basically pays for our home and our bigger expenses. So basically today's going to be a what not to do when it comes to business and life and everything in between. And more than anything, I was determined to finish 2025 very differently to how I did in 2024. And it's panning out that way, which is great. Look, the reason that I really want to talk about this topic today is because honestly, it's really common and it's really real, and we don't talk about burnout enough. And I think it's super important for me to share my experience so you can learn from it, both good and bad. I think especially nowadays, we have a tendency to always focus on everybody else's highlight reel and all the great things that they share in their life and in their business and everything else. And then we compare ourselves, and comparison culture is fucked. It's probably a topic for another day. But we see everybody else and we see how great they're doing and we see how their lives are perfect and everything's performing and everything's great. And it's fucking not like that. It's actually not like that. I'm a really open book, and I know my clients know very well what happened last year, and I've spoken to them lots about it this year because I don't want that repeat of that for them. But we all go through stuff, and we all don't need to share what we don't want to share, and some people overshare, and that's fine. That's their prerogative too. But I really want people not to do what I did last year. And I really want anybody who is listening in today to actually learn from this. So anyway, here we go. Recap on 2024, the hardest year ever. So it was October, I think, last year. And I sat down with my therapist. I'm a big advocate for therapy, by the way. If you are in a relationship, if you have children, if you're in business, if you're an adult human, go to fucking therapy. It's the best thing ever. And it wasn't until I sort of laid everything out on a plate with my therapist, I actually realized how much I was actually doing. And when I say I say we with my husband as well. So I wrote them down because I thought I'm going to forget something. We were living in and finishing an extensive renovation that we had been doing for 3.5 years in our apartment. Now, if you've ever lived in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, tiny property while you're renovating with 2 dogs, it's a lot. It's a lot. And renovating, as anybody knows, the budget always goes and absolutely skyrockets out of control. And it definitely did for us too. And it's just always a bigger experience than you expect. I feel you're going yeah, it's fine. It's going to be great. And then you realize you've got black mold in your walls and your floors need to come up and everything needs to go. And you basically end up doing this massive thing that you thought was going to be a surface renovation. Well, that was us. That was us for 3.5 years. So we're finishing an extensive renovation that we've lived in for 3.5 years. Our new house had just started building. It was delayed by 3 years because of council issues with our land. We built in a development, an experience I've never had before. I've always built on existing established blocks. So I'm sitting here paying for a block of land that's like just increasing and increasing and increasing and increasing. And it's like a piece of dirt that doesn't even have anything on it. And that whole experience was like delayed by 2 years starting. So that's also stressful enough when you're like, how long am I going to be paying 2 mortgages for? Absolutely killer. Another thing I'll talk about another day, but as you guys know, if you follow me personally in my own private Instagram and on my own, business Instagram and everything, we also are experiencing some pretty serious infertility. And in 2024, we went through multiple rounds of IVF. And anyone who's experienced infertility knows that it's not just emotionally draining, it's financially extremely stressful. It's physically draining, physically stressful, physically exhausting. My body has completely changed. My boobs are as big as my fucking head. My body's different. Everything's different. And when you're being injected with hormones and being pumped like a fucking farm chicken full of all sorts of drugs, your body just goes haywire. And to give you a bit of an idea, we've spent about $185,000 on IVF treatments and related treatments, naturopathy, psychology, like everything else around that as well. So it's been a massive undertaking and we know it's going to be worth it. And we know, I hope that in the next few months I'll be having an announcement that I'll be having a baby. But yeah, and we also lost one of our transfers last year. And you work so hard to get these little embryos that sit frozen forever. And, then to go through the effort and all the daily blood tests and everything else of going through a transfer and then for it not to take is shitty. It's shitty. There's kind of no other word for it. As well as that, because I'm a psychopath, I decided to buy another puppy. So we had a 2-year-old Rottweiler Cruz, and then I decided to get Coco. Bought her for my husband, who's like a Staffy obsessed man. And Coco's just like, Cruz is just such a like super chill, beautiful angel boy, and Coco's like a little psychotic gremlin. We love her, but all in the mix of everything else, I was like, yeah, let's throw another dog in the mix. Anywho, as well as that, I was working literally like 5 to 7 days a week. So 5 to 6 days a week spent on clients. I was also rebuilding and rewriting and re-recording my coaching portal, which takes forever. I was managing my team. I was really growth focused. I ran 14 retreats and like conferences and day educations all over the country. I also did so many in-salon educations. I think it was like 23 or something last year. Crazy. And I know that like there's probably this delusion with education that you just rock up on the day and kind of go with it. It's not like that for me. I spent ages. I build out books. I write content. I like plan my day. I organize my staff to be there. I like am meeting with the owner or whoever's paid for the education to make sure I'm covering all the topics. Like it's a really big undertaking and I love it. Like it's amazing, but it's not as simple as just like waking up one day and like going to work and going to educate a team. Like I want to make sure that I bring value and I deliver and I help them. I also partnered with some really amazing businesses, like large businesses as well, to train their teams, which was really cool. But to put this in a literal sense, I flew 49 times in 9 months last year. And 4 of those flights were for a spontaneous holiday that we took. The other 45 were all for work. And I know there's this like idea that it's really glamorous and there is parts of it that's good. Like I love having just night to myself, ordering in room service and chilling in a hotel room, but it's like not without me being absolutely fucking fried and exhausted and also being away from my family. So I think, if that's something that you are looking into or that's something that you're feeling like you want to experience, it's an amazing life, but it's a big undertaking. I also had in 2024, I realized that I had a few really debilitating and kind of soul-destroying relationships around me. My romantic relationship is beautiful. I'm married to the human equivalent of sunshine, and I have some beautiful, amazing friends in my life. All of my friends are incredible, but I made the really difficult decision in the middle of last year to end all communication with my birth givers. And I also ended the relationship with 2 of my long-term friends. And anyone who's been through that before knows how hard it is, and you've got to grieve. It's grief, no one died, thankfully, but you've still got to grieve the loss of people. It's emotionally taxing, we'll say. So long story short, I said no to nothing and yes to everything. Totally embraced the FOMO last year and went to bloody everything. But financially it was hard. Mortgage for our reno, mortgage for our land, plus a construction loan coming into the end of the year. And, we had a really tough December 2023 to January 2024 was really tough in business. We had 16, 17 of our clients that had like paused or were like reducing payments because they weren't managing their things properly and their clients are not visiting them as frequently. And it was just like this big weird year. So it kind of like the whole of 2024 started off shit. It started off crappy. And, I always give 110% to all my clients. And when you're carrying other people's things as well as your own things, you feel bogged down, shoulders over, all the things. But Anyways, that was the first 9 months of 2024. And then that brings us into October. So it was early October. My body's inflamed. Even after a spontaneous Fijian holiday with some of our friends and my husband, I still really wasn't okay. Normally, for myself, and I know this is true of so many of my clients, we can kind of like our reset is like going overseas somewhere, not talking to anyone for a few weeks, and you kind of, your body comes back into the room, your life comes back into the room, your brain cells like re-engage, and it's like, you know, you're good again. You've like reset yourself and you're like, cool, I'm ready to hit the ground running when I go back. Well, normally that happens to me too, but it didn't happen for me this time. It was, we went a week after we lost our embryo transfer, which was really sad. And we went with a few of our awesome friends, and then we had a couple of nights by ourselves in a beautiful resort, and like it was incredible, but I still just felt like I was just a blob. Honestly, I was mentally cooked. I had absolutely nothing going on between the ears. And so I came back, pushed through September, went and visited my, therapist again in October. I wasn't seeing her frequently enough last year, and then was referred to a psychiatrist, and I was diagnosed with burnout, and I was put on antidepressants, and I was actually told that I needed to have bed rest. I was ordered to stop, and it's so stupid because I saw all these signs of like why I needed to stop and why my body wasn't coping, and I was like inflamed, and I was just everything, and my brain was just a soggy biscuit, and I was just like still kept going because that's what we do. We don't listen. Anyways, I was running one of my Elevate full day conferences in Sydney in October. And then I was meant to be 2 weeks later doing another one in November in the Gold Coast. And I ran my sold out October conference. And the reason I did that, despite being ordered bed rest, was because I'd had so many clients flying in, heaps of people coming in from different areas that weren't actually from Sydney. And I just thought I can't inconvenience other people because of my own health things. And I'm sure that they would have been fine, but I just didn't want to do that. When I tell you I was at this conference hanging on by a fucking thread, I was like so bloated. My makeup didn't go on well. I wasn't sleeping well. I look like a different person in a lot of my photos and stuff. I actually hate the photos from that event because I just I look like I felt pretty much. But yeah, everything in my body was raging. So I actually decided to cancel my November conference. I've never done that before. You could pretty much have me. If I've booked something in, I'll be there. Even if I've got tonsillitis, even if I'm dying, I'll be there. So I canceled my November conference. Thankfully, those clients were amazing and ended up coming when I rescheduled. I also canceled 11, like what I call on location jobs, which is like either in business education, in-person education conferences, going into other businesses, just like where I'm not working from home, basically, not online. I refunded 5. I moved 6 into the new year. Fucking cuts a hole in you when you got to refund that many people, but I respected their decision as well. They were wanting me to be there and they weren't. I also lost a few really good leads because I couldn't lock them down, and that's just a part of it. I had to make that decision. Cam and I were meant to fly down to Victoria over Christmas to see our niece and nephew and also see my in-laws. That was cancelled, and I literally end of October coming back from Sydney just died in a heap. I was a blob. I was a mess. It's kind of hard to look back on. I was actually bedridden. And for someone who's like, go, and such a social person and such a whatever, that was like, it was killer. It was really hard. And look, I have to thank my clients for throughout that time. They were really patient with me. They only reached out to me when they absolutely needed to, and that was amazing. I also have to thank my staff because genuinely they took a huge load off me. And so did Cam. He absolutely held it down while I recovered, and he gave me the grace and the space and like honored my need to recover. And I think having somebody, if you're going to have a relationship, you've got to have someone who's a team player, and you've got to have someone who's your teammate, and you've got to have someone who loves you and cares for you and respects you enough to like do that for you. Previous marriage, that was not the case for me, but this one definitely is. So basically I'd thrown all the rules that I teach and preach completely out the window. And I was so financially focused that I just needed to check myself because I absolutely fucking wrecked myself. And I paid in the worst way. And the universe, that cunt, gave me the exact message that I needed in the harshest way possible because I wasn't listening. I wasn't taking on the cues. I wasn't listening to my body. And I'm a person who's very in tune and knows myself inside out. And I'm so self-aware, but why does it always do that, right? It's like, you want to do this? The fuck you will. You need to stop. Anywho, that's kind of what happened. That's a very detailed description of what happened, I guess. But this is how I fixed it. So after 2 months of being bedridden, we're coming into the end of December and I'm like starting to feel like a human being again. I'm starting to feel like myself. My skin's coming back to life. My body's coming back to life. My hair's feeling good. Like, it's crazy how much all this mental stuff actually carries over into your physical body as well. And I'm sure if most of you listening are pretty woo-woo, if you're a fan of mine, you know that I'm a good mix of like woo-woo and strategy. But I realized that I kind of like really needed to reassess how I lived my life and how I ran my businesses. So in this time and in this break, I took a really big step back, obviously physically and mentally. And I really looked at things from the outside. I kind of like dissociated myself and like looked down on my life as like a big picture of like, all right, what's fucking me up? What's going well? What's not going well? XYZ, as it is. So finally, I went right back and used the actual coaching process that I teach, which was going right back and just writing down what the fuck I want. What do I want? And then from there, I went through and did like basically a perfect day vision. I'm sure you've heard of this, where you go through and you write about like what your perfect day looks like, what your perfect work day looks like, what your perfect personal day looks like, what your perfect week looks like what do you want your life to look like? And part of that is like the visualization and the manifestation of bringing that into life. And I got really clear on my goals, really specific goals, really specific action steps, and like an actual plan of how to get there. You can sit there and you can write that you want a fucking Lamborghini, but if you're not going and doing anything about it, it's not just going to plonk in your driveway one day. There has to be some actual action steps and plans and systems in place to make all of these things happen. Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking and it's not even really that. You're just never going to get there at all. So that was kind of like the real starting off point. I was like, okay, I feel excited again. This is the direction I'm going. This is what I want. This is how I'm going to do it. That's what I'm gunning for this year. And from that, then I needed to restructure what my life looked like to be able to make those things possible. It's all well and good to sit here and say that you want to increase your income or you want to blah, blah, blah. But if you don't have time for it, you're not going to do it. So you got to create the time. So I had 2 staff at that time, sim-in-laws. They're amazing. If you work with me, you'll know them quite well. And I basically restructured their roles and got really specific with like and definitive with like what their actual position was. And I did the same thing for them. I wrote them descriptions and gave them rules and gave them things that they could do that were within those roles and like separated them completely. I hired a client liaison, and let me tell you, Elle is a fucking godsend. That woman has changed how I do things. No longer am I booking client appointments. No longer am I dealing with the nitty gritty. No longer am I dealing with emails. No longer am I dealing with any of that stuff that just takes my time and my brain capacity away. And from there, I then got to just be the creative, do the bit of the job that I love, which is the coaching and the loving and the holding those clients close and supporting them in their business and their journeys. So from there, I set strict client days. No longer am I doing clients 7 days a week. It's just not happening. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, only days I have on clients, only days I book sales calls, only days I book virtual meetings, no more than that. And that's it. That's all I'm doing. I have every single public holiday off so I can enjoy some time with my husband. I booked lunch breaks, fucking revolutionary. And something that I'm so strict on with my own staff, especially when we had salons, that you have to have a lunch break, guys. Fucking revolutionary. Lunch, same time every day. And, you know, Elle basically restructures and rearranges everything that I needed to do. So she did that. I didn't even have to do that job. That was something I just outsourced and paid for. And from there, having the 3 days limited to clients, I then get to make better use of my other days, which is my Thursday, Friday. Every Saturday and Sunday is off, okay? Thursday to Friday is for working on the business, my personal appointments, my errands. Every single Thursday night, Cam and I have date night. In the event that one of us is working or one of us is away, we would just move that to another day. But we have date night every week. We found that we were always doing it on the weekends, and then it would always end up being with other friends. And then we're not really having like any personal time together. So Thursday night's a good night for us. Coming into the end of the week, every single week we go somewhere. Even if it's the pub across the road, we just go and hang out. And it's like the greatest thing ever. So my weekends are for my family and friends. They're for being social. They're for my hobbies, playing guitar, painting, off-screen time. They're for work at my Thursdays and Fridays for working on my potty, just everything. And I always try to like bring myself a new affirmation or a saying or a word that I follow through with. And that's what I'm going to like lean into this year. And in 2025, that was JOMO. Which, if you don't know, is the joy of missing out. We have so many free weekends now where we just hang out and what we call taking advantage of our mortgage. We just sit around at home and do nothing and watch TV and swim in our pool and hang out with our dogs and go on walks and just do nothing. And it's fucking awesome. Can't believe I missed out on this all of last year. So anyways, that has like literally changed my life this year. We're now in October. We've got a couple months to go of 2025. And like, I can't believe the 180-degree turnaround I've had from this time last year to this time this year, where I feel happy and healthy and confident and all the things. And my work structure is great. My clients have responded so well to the boundaries. We've grown astronomically this year because I've got those boundaries and because I've got those rules in place and because I've got those limitations. And, you know, my staff are really clear on what they've got to do. Cam and I support each other like through and through with everything that we do. And don't get me wrong, like I've done heaps of traveling work this year. I think I've flown, it was like 38 or 39 times this year, but I've stacked my work. So it's always been like, if I'm going to Sydney, I'm doing all of my work in Sydney. If I'm going to Melbourne, I'm doing all of my work in Melbourne. I've also had time off. I've also, again, made sure that I've had my weekends to myself where I'm not going somewhere. And I've like balanced my work with my personal time and my downtime and my self-care. So, you know, if you are doing that sort of thing, just make sure that you balance it out is probably my only advice there. I kind of want to finish this off with a bit of a metaphor too. And that was like, if you've got an Apple Watch, if you're an Apple user and you've got an Apple Watch, I always found it really funny that I don't know why this came into my head when I was writing out like my notes for this episode. But you know, when your watch battery is like getting really low and it's like, okay, cool. Like it's like your battery's below 10%. Do you want to go into battery saving mode? And you're like, yes. Like that's the time to put your watch on charge, right? Because if it goes completely dead, it's taking 5 years to turn back on. And that's what I did last year. Instead of recharging when I was at 10% or 20% or even 30%, when my battery was on yellow, I waited until my battery died. Like I was deceased. And it just took so much longer to pull myself back into normality and back into life and recharge my batteries fully. So don't wait till your batteries are dead before you recharge. And I think like probably the biggest piece of advice out of those is like just be clear on your direction and be really strict on sticking with a schedule. And I have an ADHD diagnosis. I can't be medicated at the moment because we're doing IVF and I have this crazy scattered ADHD brain, but I respond really well to schedule and routine and whatever. I am flexible in my routine. If I really can't do something or if my brain capacity can't handle it, I'll give myself the grace of having a break. But like I always stick to routine. And that's why it's great having a husband that's touched by the tism because he is like regimented and booked and routined and calendar and everything has to be the same every day. And it's like really kind of good balance. I make him a bit crazy and he makes me a bit stricter and more routine. Anyway, honor your need for self-care, honor your need for downtime, and also build all these things into your routine. And how I just want to close this off today is if you don't take care of your wellness, you will have to make time for your sickness. And like it did with me, the universe will drop it on you like a ton of bricks and give it to you at the most inconvenient time in the most inconvenient way. And you'll be suffering through that. So don't learn the hard way like I did. Take care of yourselves, take care of your biz, take care of your brains, take care of your bodies. And yeah, make time for your wellness, hey.